Hello everyone, and welcome to my deck tech of Sisay, Weatherlight Captain. This is a 5-color deck, themed around fishing up legendaries from your deck. In my case, mostly creatures, a few niche cases of other things, but mostly creatures. Different shapes and sizes, utility, some that can help win you the game, some that just fit right into the right situation. And some, just a few for flavor, a homage to the original Weatherlight crew, I guess you could call it. Anyway, I'm going to run through my deck, all the cards I have in them, and just a little explanation of why some of them are in the deck. For starters, I'm going to start with my land base. Unlike most decks where you want to kind of build your lands around what colors you want to see the most, certain pips, things of that nature. This deck's actually really wants to have an even split. It wants to get Wooburg as many times as you can, and because of that I run the fetches. Those let me tutor up exactly what I'll need to get Wooburg as fast as I can. Most of the time, using Sisay's ability will be better than playing the cards you have in hand. Most of the time. We had the 10 fetches, so we also have 10 dual lands to go with them. Like I said, color fixing is the important part. You want to make sure you can hit Wooburg at all times. So to add on to that, we have the 10 original duels. We also have all of the triomes. I found these are really good and make the deck a lot better just because it's not super fast. You can get Sisay out quick, but you still have to get one of each color. So having a land come into play tapped usually isn't too big of a deal. And these get you the options 3 colors, obviously, instead of 2. You don't want to run into too many basics, but you do want to have some. So to go along with the 10 fetches, I have the 10 duels, 5 triomes, and the 5 basic lands. And I've found that that works pretty well. I've run into a game or two where you don't quite get what you need sometimes early game, but if you keep a land with a fetch land, keep a hand with a fetch land in it, you're usually pretty good to go. Lands that tap for 3 are obviously pretty good. So I have these. Mana Confluence pings you, Reflecting Pool with this mana base is generally a 5-color land, and then Command Tower just is a 5-color land. We have some lands that let you filter mana, so if you go heavy, or you see Soul Ring or some artifact mana, you need to filter it into colors. We have Crystal Quarry and Cascading Cataracts, 2 really pretty lands, art-wise. Also, they do the really good job of filtering. I would say, even though it hurts because I really like Crystal Quarry, Cascading Cataracts is significantly better. It's indestructible. It lets you filter through specifics. There are a few cards in here that can use like triple of one color, such as Chainer, that Cascading Cataracts can really help with. And then we have 2 lands that can be tutored up with Sisay. One is Urborg, which gives you a lot of good function in the deck. Turns everything into swamps, which is good for the Chainer I just mentioned. As well as making some of your more finishing creatures unblockable because they have Swamp Walk. That's another big benefit. And lastly, but definitely not least, we have Gaia's Cradle, because we have, as you'll see, a significant number of creatures in here. So this card is very good, especially in conjunction with Chromatic Ori. If it starts to ask for 6-7 mana, with the Ori you can spend all that green mana into different colors, being able to activate Sisay multiple times usually, which is when the deck really starts to kind of function really nicely, is when you can get 1 or you can get 2 or more activations a turn. That's when you really kind of start to go off, as they say. Just a little bit of ramp. Sisay's 3, so you don't need a ton, and while you do want to get to like 2 activations, getting your first is the most important. After that, there'll be cards that you can use with her activation to get up to the second and 3rd activations per turn. I prefer putting lands into play over artifacts, so I also do run 3 visits of Farseek, as well as Kodama's Reach and Cultivate. These are kind of dangerous because there's actually only 5 basics in here, but given that I usually don't fetch them up, I haven't had a problem yet. You only usually see 1 a game, and if you don't, you see more. Sometimes it could be a dead card, but it hasn't happened to me yet, so I think having 4 is a fine number. I have 2 creatures that let me ramp as well, Bird of Paradise and Noble Hierarch. These are in there specifically because they let me turn 2 a Sisay. Noble Hierarch in particular lets me then swing with Sisay on the next turn and pumps her. Sometimes you can get someone. It feels kind of bad to eliminate them really fast, but with the right draws, Sisay can commander damage people out pretty quickly, usually by turn 5 or 6. Most people have blockers by then, but we've got some ways of getting her through. She's the captain. She's got to get back to her quarters real quick. And then our last piece of ramp is Mirari's Wake. It also buffs our creatures by +1/+1, which is nice. But again, this is more about you play this on turn 5, turn 6. If you can activate Sisay twice, that's when you really start, cooking with fire. So that's all the ramp, dedicated ramp. Next cards I'm going to show you are the legendary creatures we have that also are ramp, and usually the first ones I tutor out. They are Jingantha, the Wellspring, Selvala, Heart of the Wilds, and Asika, God of the Tree. Asika has a pretty cool backside. However, I've actually yet to play it, just because her getting my legendaries, which is almost all the creatures in this deck, Vigilance, and the ability to tap for mana makes her very valuable. Like I said, that is 2nd activation. Selvala, same. She can be X mana of any color. That card is really good. Probably one of the best cards in the deck, and if I get the opportunity to early, I will usually try to tutor Selvala out. Jingantha is really good because he just flat pays for an Sisay activation by himself, no matter what. If you can give him haste with boots or some sort of enchantment, you can pay to activate her, get him, give him haste, which doesn't really do anything. It still kind of nets you the 1, but then you have him out, and next turn, if you get to untap, then you have accelerated. These next few cards are going to be labeled as card advantage. They're ways to help me draw cards. Like I said, I don't want to draw a ton of cards. However, sometimes you need to find your removal, and I don't run a ton of removal. So these guys let me draw cards. Reki and Joyra, the new captain. They let me draw cards when you cast legendaries or historics. Atris, Oracle of Half-Truths. I did need some extra blue and black. Mostly blue. Legends in the deck to pump Sisay up. You want to kind of hit all of her colors if you can. Make her 7/7. I really liked Atris having Menace. I do have equipment in the deck, so getting some swords on her is pretty good. Plus, I just really like her ability. I find it fun and a way to engage people. Then there's this new guy, Queen. He's friendly to the table. It's everyone kind of draw cards, gain life. He's just a cool dude, and he's also blue, so that helps. And white, because Sisay doesn't count herself. So I've been pretty impressed with him. He's been fun. He's lived a lot longer than he should, probably. And some of the times I find myself not even wanting to activate him because, like I said, most of the cards you want to be able to get out at instant speed with Sisay and kind of surprise people or do something like that. So those are all card advantage. The next card's also kind of card advantage, but it's in a different category. It's the old Sisay. Tap her, search your library for a legend or legendary card, which is really sick. Reveal it and put it in your hand. She's just always one I've been a fan of. When I first started playing Commander, she was like one of the really broken generals. Not so much anymore, but still really cool, just kind of iconic. And this is a little bit of the theme part of the deck, where we have some of the original crew of the original Weatherlight. Gerard Capuchin, he's on there. Not super good, but it's only a few slots I dedicated. Miri, Weatherlight Duelist, is really good. Is a 3-drop, so pumps Sisay by 2. I've had a lot of times where I tap her to crew the Weatherlight, and that saves me from getting slaughtered by like a board pumped by a Craterhoof Behemoth, like elves and stuff. So she's really good, and if you're getting outswarmed, it's just a really solid creature. I don't have everyone on the crew, but I do have my 2 favorite crew members. Tongarth, he's a sweet Minotaur with Vigilance that fights other dudes. Pretty good when you get a sword on him. Give him protection from the color of the creature you fight, and then fight it and doesn't really do anything back. And then he's also featured on the next card, which is kind of a meme, but still fun. Squee, Goblin the Bob, and he's actually part of the flavor General Tangarth Roared. General Nuisance, maybe. Mercadian Mask Squee, got a big funny coat on. That's just the flavor of the deck. It doesn't really harm the power level too much, because the deck isn't super powerful to begin with. It draws a lot of cards by activating Sisay's ability, but you're just putting legendary dudes into play. You can play something that makes 15 tokens and just block everybody, and it's like kind of the same power level. These next 2 here are Linvala, Shield of the Seagate, and Safi Eriksdotter. Safi Eriksdotter, pretty iconic card. You can sack her to bring target creature back from the graveyard when it goes this turn. And Linvala has a similar effect in the way that she can sacrifice herself to give creatures hexproof or indestructible, which is really good when you get going. Sometimes you have things that let you go on other people's turn, like a Seedborn Muse. You really start putting a lot of people into play. They're going to try and rack you. So, usually, the first 2 guys I go get are these guys, if I've got everything set up. And I'll usually use this on her, and then sack Linvala to give them, or Linvala, sorry, to give them indestructible, and have Linvala come back in case someone tries to do it again. But that's for when you're really far ahead. Which doesn't happen a ton, but it's good to be prepared for it, because if you can save yourself, you usually end up taking the game. These next 2 cards I just wanted to call out specifically. They're in the deck to pump Sisay. If you're trying to get 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 drops out of your deck, you gotta have another way to pump Sisay besides having legendary colors. Arvad pumps her by a total of 4, and Jirina actually pumps her by a total of 5. Which is pretty wild. Dreen also makes a token or 2, depending sometimes, which I'll tutor up if I'm trying to dodge, like a Shield Dread trigger or something along those lines. Those are the pumps. I have one more pump creature. It's Ulrich of the Crawling Horde. This guy is awesome. He comes into play, gives creature +4/+4. If I don't have red-green permanent, pumps Sisay by 6 total, which puts her at 8, which lets me go get 7 drops, which is pretty nuts. I can go get Chromatic Ori, which is a really good card in the deck to have out. And he's just fun to flip into uncontested alpha and fight something when he's a 6/6, or bigger if you have a sword on him. The next few people are just really pet cards. Cards I had laying around, cards that I really want to play, either in other decks or anything, just testing out. But I've found they've all been very useful, with the exception of 1 or 2. Marisi, Regular Coils. This card is insane. Not a lot of people are used to playing against her, or him, sorry, I don't know what it is. And they can't cast spells during combat. So if you manage to hit everyone at the table, besides obviously yourself, and get everyone goaded, it buys you a lot of wiggle room. Usually makes your stuff unblockable because all their stuff's tapped from attacking. To get the Fiesta started, because I really like swinging at people. Queen Marquez is fun. Monarch's probably one of the best mechanics I've ever made, in my opinion. Pumps Sisay by 3. Gives you a little token, and she got Death Touch in case, so Marchese's pretty good. Iroas is the only god in here. Original Theros god, I guess. That's Sika's one, but I've always been a real big fan of Xenagos and Iroas and the kind of combat gods. I went with Iroas over Xenagos because I was running out of room. I would have ran both of them, but I went with Iroas because Menace and making it so you can swing with all your dudes, little and big, is nice, and you don't have to worry about kind of getting blown out in the trade by them killing off some of your smaller guys while still forcing through damage, which is always nice. Chainer takes a lot of black mana to activate, but he is really sick. Played a game the other day against a Dragon's deck, and a kid scioned an early Broodmate Dragon, and I got to bring that back. And I got to have him for most of the game, and it got me a lot of tokens, so even when he died, I kept the tokens, and it was a pretty good day. This next one is kind of the dream team, Solkanar, the Swamp King. Just a pet card of mine. I've had him forever. He's cool, he's old, he's foil, he's got Swamp Walk with Herboard, which is whatever, it's an unblockable 5/5 basically. And you gain a life when a player plays it by a spell. Basically not relevant, but I really like him, and the artwork's cool, so I run him. I have Taneb, the Harvester. That was like one of my original commanders. And he's good for getting deck key pieces like Selvala and Linvala. Good ramp, good protection, stuff of that nature. And then another pet card I have quite a few in the deck. Sylvos Rogue Elemental. I got a Phyrexian Arena in the deck, so you gotta have some pit fighters. You know, send Chainer and Sylvos and come all down there. Just have them get buck wild. So those are more of the middle ground legendary creatures. I mean, Sylvos will still beat some, you know. He's a 8 power and he's got regenerate, so he'll stick around. These last 3 are kind of the finishers, depending on how the game's going, who I'm playing against. I'll bust one of these out. The most generic one is Kamal. I wanted to play the old Kamal, but I found the new Kamal much more synergistic with the deck, and I didn't really have a lot of space because I was running out of space in the deck. So I only run one, and Sisay is the only one that gets a duplicate. Sorry, there's one other card that gets a duplicate, but you'll know why in a second. We have Progenitus, another sweet dude, a menace from the era of old. He doesn't close out too many games these days, but still fun to have in the deck. It's still fun to see if you can get Sisay big enough to activate, bring him out, which you can on a good day. And then last but not least, if you got a big spell slinger in your game and they're taking extra turns and doing a bunch of crazy crap, you know, what's crack-a-lacking? My Kraken's attacking, dude. You break out Reptile, Swamp Walk, Island Walk. The dude's basically unblockable. You start taking their extra turns, taking their big ramp spells, taking their ultimatums. Yeah. I don't know what it's like to be on the other end, but that seemed like it'd be a pretty good way to die. So, those are the legendary creatures I have in the deck. Next up, I'm just going to show you a few more legendary things that I have in the deck. Obviously, duplicate. You got the Weatherlight Captain running the ship. You got to have the other Weatherlights. Skyship Weatherlight, this one, 90% of the time it goes and gets the original crew. And I put them in there just as a fun kind of thematic way. And then I don't draw them, and I can draw them at will. If you get Seedborn Muse going, it's pretty good. This Weatherlight is probably better, which is sad, but true. Being able to tap Miri, tap some of the other creatures, tap Sisay if you're not swinging into her, hit someone with a flying, draw a card. I mean, you can't really whiff in this deck. I've got like 55 plus legendaries, plus artifacts. You know, it's pretty hard to whiff on these. Another legendary artifact I have is Chromatic Ori. This card's pretty good. Lets you prismatic all of your mana, which is really hot, and then also is a free activation, so if you activate Sisay to tutor this up, you can immediately tap it and activate her again. And if it's on your turn, I will usually tap her and activate and go get Kiora. Behemoth Beckoner, because she untaps a permanent, is 2 colors, which pumps Sisay if we need it. And that permanent's usually Chromatic Ori, so you just get kind of a free activation out of it. We also have Black Blade Reforged. Put it on Sisay, you can tutor anything out of the deck you want. Pretty sweet. You also slap on Rexiel every now and then, just really go to town on someone. And then we have Primeval's Glorious Rebirth. Honestly, at this point, I could probably be running the new Ultimatum and it would be better, but that's not a legendary sorcery, and we're chasing the dream, not the competition here, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to keep playing that guy. That's a good way to end the game if you've been wrapped a few times, but you still feel like you can pull it out. I didn't want to go too big, Craterhoof Behemoth, or any Triumph of the Hordes type effects. I have Kamal, which is close enough as traditional overrun. But I kind of wanted to go back to Beat and Face. I feel like EDH games now all end in a combo or one sweeping turn. No one just dies to good old combat anymore. So I have an equipment package in here. Lightning Greaves, just your standard junk. Hero's Blade, pretty good. You can play it on turn 2. Sisay on turn 3, it auto-equips. Turn 4, you can play like a legendary dude and hit someone for like 6 with Sisay. It's pretty sick. I got some swords to force through damage, because not a lot of the legends have evasion. Feast and Famine, obviously pretty nuts. Activate Sisay with the trigger on the stack, then untap, and you get to activate her again. Light and Shadow can get you back some of your smaller dudes. Really good if you got Linvala or Safi Eric's daughter. Get them back over and over again is really nice. Fire and Ice. Draw a card. Shock. I just really like that card and always have liked Fire and Ice, and the artwork on these ones are pretty cool. So I went with them. I also wanted to run War and Peace, because War and Peace is actually my favorite sword. However, room again, and you didn't want to draw too many equipments, and I felt that these ones were the best suited for the deck. And it feels like it's working out pretty well, pretty good so far. The relevant protection colors and all of that. Next, your general tutors for you, so you don't have to have a lot of tutors. I run 3, personally. Black ones are the 2 best ones. And then Light and Tutor. Light and Tutor goes and gets a pretty big swath of things. I have a couple enchantments, so it gives you card advantage. Mirari's Wake. Soul Ring, Mana Crypt. Chromatic Ori, depending on what kind of stage you're in the game, ramp-wise. So I went with a Light and Tutor as well, because I got it laying around, and it'll hit you with the ramp, and if it doesn't, you know, it can always go get you a sword, get Black Blade, get the end of the game coming near. Next up is my removal package, I guess you would call it. It's not very big. You got swords, hit any creature. It's always a good time. Assassin's Trophy, really good. Got one like the day it came out, and I was just like, I'm probably playing this card forever. It's just really good. And it can be a little political. You know, give someone a land who's struggling. Get them back in the game to help out with whoever's arch enemy. Or just buy a little favor if they're playing a deck full of wraths and they're going to wrath you eventually anyway. Maybe ask for a turn off or something. Hull Breach, because we're playing the Weatherlight, and you know, anyone who knows what this card's about, you basically have to have it. Got Heliod's Invention and Aura Shards. These are all cards that, these 3 are all good against artifacts and enchantments. Heliod's Intervention can gain you life, but I rarely use that mode. Aura Shards, got a lot of creatures, so I find it more fair. Traditionally, I'm not a huge fan of Aura Shards. However, in this deck, we have like one thing that can make tokens. And it's usually 5 mana per creature that I'm getting out, so it feels pretty fair. But whenever you play in a token deck and they just blow up every artifact or enchantment that's ever made, it makes me kind of feel sorry for the non-green players who don't get to ramp lands and relied on their signets to let them play the game. So normally I don't play Aura Shards, but I found it pretty fair in this deck. Last up, we just have a couple random enchantments. The ones I was talking about, they get card advantage. For Exian Arena, you gotta have a pit for Silvos to fight in, so obviously. Ristic Study, really good. Someone doesn't pay the tax, you get to draw a card. Try not to be too annoying about it, but make sure you don't miss any draws. And Rhythm of Wilds. This card's pretty good. Give your creatures haste. There's a few creatures in the deck that heavily benefit from haste. And the ones who don't can just get a +1/+1 counter. It's the same cost as Fires of Yavimaya, and you trade the uncounterability and not affecting tokens to getting +2/+2 for a turn and having to sacrifice the enchantment. One's clearly better, in my opinion. And then the last three cards kind of don't fit into any real category here, but they are good and they're in the deck. Seedborn Muse, obviously insane. If you're even at one activation with Sisay, you'll get to activate it 2 or 3 times before it gets back to your turn. And by then you can go get Selvala or Jangotha or Chromatic Ori, and then next turn you're doing it 2 times a turn. And that's usually where the game gets out of hand for your opponents, unless they're off the board. We got Eternal Witness. I could be playing a Regrowth effect in the deck. There's a few that I like All Sun's Dawn, and one from Eldraine, I believe it's called Once and Future. However, I've usually found it's just one card I'm usually trying to get, so I don't really need the multiple card ones, and my Regrowth is in my Ward the Raid Mother deck. So, sticking with Eternal Witness for the time being. If I pick up another Regrowth, I might switch it out. But I got a pretty one, and I like Eternal Witness, so she's staying in for now. And last but not least, favorite card in the history of Magic, Life from the Loam. Can't really read what it does because it's signed, but it gets you 3 lands back from your graveyard. With the fetches, it's really good. There's a small sub-theme with the Primeval's Glorious Rebirth, where if I have that and I want to start dumping cards in, that's a good way to do it. But mostly it's just there to hit your land drops. Like I said, getting to be able to activate Sisay once and then twice is how you win the game. So you want to make sure you hit your land drops. It's probably more important than drawing cards at almost every point, because your card advantage comes through activating Sisay. And that is it. That was all the cards in the deck. A little run through, a little homage to a pastime. Old crew, the Weatherlight. I don't have everyone. I don't have Hannah or Ty. But I got some of them, and they're in there, and they're fun. The deck's pretty good. It is very consistent, so I would say that's one kind of downside of the deck, is you play the same game quite a bit after a while. I mean, the games all change, and you go and get different creatures based on what the need is. However, the need is almost always early mana, so you're going to want to find Asika or Selvala. And then once you get that going, you're going to not want it to die, so you're going to want to get Safi or Linvala. So it is a little linear. After that, it really explodes into kind of whatever you want, and it is fun to be able to pull up win conditions based on what you need. If you have someone with a ton of creatures, you go get Marisi and tag them with a flyer, then they're swinging at everybody else, so you don't have to worry about it. Like I said, you got someone slinging big extra turn spells, you hit them with Rexiel, you take an extra turn, you clear all the extra turn cards out of their graveyard, and you can usually win the game by that time, if they don't have an answer for Rexiel. So, and then Progenitus is sweet, and Kamal's a cool dude, so those are all good ways to end the game. And if you get wrathed out too many times, you hit Primeval's Glorious Rebirth, you bring them all back, and, heroes are remembered, but legends never die. So, thank you for watching my deck, and everyone have a good day.